Hi guys, welcome to our second session for week 2. We are going to pick up where we left off yesterday, but first I wanted to make sure we go through, I talked to you guys a lot yesterday about where I leave my comments and instructions on how to fix things. And I want to make sure that you guys know exactly how to do that stuff. So let me reshare my screen here. And I'm going to take you into our classroom. This is kind of the view you see. It looks pretty much exactly the same as what you see. When you click on your grades for each week to see what grades you got in my comments and things like that, click on the link. It's going to show you your grade here, but if you want to really get in and see the comments, you have to click on the link for that assignment or assessment. And then you're going to see my general comments right here in this box. That's just going to be my general comments. You need to come up here and click on the show rubrics. And it will open up a little drop down that will show you the rubrics. And my comments or instructions will be under anything that I took off points for. And you can do the view longer description. Now last month I had a student, their Canvas was acting a little differently than I had seen in the past. And it didn't say view longer description there. It said comments. And when she clicked on them, then she could see what I said. So be sure you're looking at that, especially if you're not happy with your grade. Be sure you're looking at that. But it's a good idea to look at it always, because sometimes if I see something that you may not have been counted off on points this week, but you will next week, I'm going to mention that in the rubrics. Be sure you remember next week to do this. Since we're working on a full mod project, I can kind of predict where you guys are going with stuff and how it's going to work, and I can do little reminders. So you're going to need to be sure you do this next week, things that you might forget or not realize that you should be doing. So be sure you look in those places when you get your grades every week. Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint. Okay, now that that's done, hi guys, how's everybody doing today? Everybody have a good day? It's Tuesday. There's only 4 more days left and then we're done. I'm good. Today, we're going to go through the announcements again. We're going to take a look at the week 1 assignment overview, and then we're going to do a demo on using that storyboard template. And then we're going to go through the week 1 assessment overview and do the demo on the assessment. For those of you that took note in the email I sent out, there are practice files for this demo. If you would like to download them so you can practice before you put it on your own creation, sometimes it's a little easier to learn the tools when you're using the exact files I used in the lecture to show you guys how to do it. Since we're all going to be creating something entirely different, it's kind of hard sometimes to take what I teach you using my graphics and apply them to your own graphics because you really don't know that skill yet. So if you want to take the assessment demo practice files and download them, and that way you can follow along with what I do, that way you truly learn the skill a little better and are able to more easily apply it to your own animated object that you're going to make fly this week. Our next lecture will be Monday at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. So we're moving it up to earlier during the day. If you've got problems with that time, be sure you email me, because like I told you yesterday, I'm pretty flexible on time, guys, but usually it's harder for everybody to get to lectures in the evening. So I moved it up further in the day because my schedule kind of opened up and allowed me to do that for the rest of the mod after this week. Hi, Heather. I'm Student Success Center. I did post Christy's schedule in the announcement. So if any of you find yourself needing help later in the week when you start working on your assignment and assessment, please check out her schedule and go in and see her if you need help. And again, I will be in the Student Success Center. Thursdays from 8 to 11 p.m. Mountain Time, and on Friday from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. Mountain Time. You are more than welcome to come in and get help from me, ask a question, just simply have me look something over. So if you need me, come in and see me. Don't hesitate. Lynda.com, again, is part of this class. Guys, watch it. I cannot stress enough. Watch it. You will learn so much more because it's going to go further outside the scope of your assignments and assessments, where I focus on giving you the skills that I know you need for the assignment and the assessment. Lynda.com will take that a little step further, and you'll have more of an overall understanding of Animate. So be sure you watch those. Our overview for this week. With any project, whether it is from print or web, we must address three things. What is the message? Who is the target audience? And what are we motivating them to do? We talked pretty extensively about those things yesterday and come up with some great examples. But keep that in mind for your own animation. You need to be able to answer those three questions because that should be part of your storyline. Since animation is something that the end user watches over time, we need to storyboard our ideas. So what's a storyboard? It is essentially, it's nothing more than a breakdown of your animation. It's a series of drawings to pre-visualize different frames of a movie or animation. This is an essential tool for the designer to get a sense of what the movie is going to look and feel like to present to the client. What does it look like? There are several approaches to creating a storyboard. It can be simple sketches to detailed drawing. The approach depends on how complicated the animation will be. Whichever approach is used, it needs to show enough detail to get the concept across to the client. Creating an effective storyboard. A few things should be taken into consideration. It must convey the story effectively and be as close as possible to what the animated story is telling. This means when someone is reading the storyboard, they should instantly get the story's concept and meaning. Here are a few tips to keep in mind. Can we do recycling for a growing green project for a company? Absolutely, Heather. Make sure you write captions under each frame or drawing. This will help tell whoever's looking at your storyboard what's going on in that frame. Use arrows to show camera movements. Now, guys, what I want you to think, everybody always gets a little confused here. Camera movements. Well, technically, to the viewer, when an object is moving, that's the camera. The camera is moving. Are you following me? So when your object moves and a car drives across the screen in the animation, it's like the camera is moving with that car to watch it, right? It's kind of like their eyes. It's kind of like your eyes. You kind of watch it. So when it says camera, Animate does have a camera feature, but that is not what these things are talking about. It is talking about the motion and the things that are happening on your screen. Why there is no real live camera, it's the same type of terminology. It's the same principles, that sort of thing. Make sure you color your objects to differentiate them from the background if necessary. That's what adds depth. Even in the stuff the animation we watched yesterday, Love the Bank. Could you tell what was the foreground and the background? What was the difference? Do you guys remember? We didn't technically pay a whole lot of attention to that background, did we? We were more looking at the bird and the animals in front of it. The difference was, if you go back to the course media page and you look at that video, the difference was the background was kind of faded. The colors were lighter, whereas the bird and the main two characters were very bright and vibrant. That is how they added depth to that animation. So the structure. the storyboard can vary, but it is a good idea to have the frame done in the same aspect ratio as the final animation. This is where we were talking about the shape yesterday. Try and keep all frames and descriptions on the same page. 6 is a good number to start with, and add if necessary. 6 can usually effectively convey an animation that runs 15 to 30 seconds long, depending on its complexity. Here's an example of a storyboard. It's got 12 scenes. So it's been played out, 12 scenes. Now, this storyboard could easily be compacted down to 6 scenes. Easily, because they've got the first one that's completely blank, and they've got clouds, and they got balloons. You could take the first 3 and combine them into one and just use arrows to show what's going on. And then you've got scene 6, everything's still continuing to come across the screen, and there's a box now. And then it moves on where the box breaks away from the balloon. The box starts to fall. It falls to the ground. When it falls to the ground, it opens up and something starts to come out of it. And then you see the light bulb, and then concept is going to blink there. And then you're going to have 2 other examples of concept. And it continues like that. You can kind of follow this all the way through, though, right? You can see what's happening here. Get an idea of what that animation is going to look like. That is what you're going to be doing. So your actual instructions are, first, you are going to write a brief paragraph explaining what your animated advertisement is all about, what it is selling, and who the target audience is. You need to answer those 3 questions we just went over. You're also going to include how long the animation is expected to take. For this assignment, the length of your animation should be 10 to 30 seconds long. No less than 10 seconds long. And I would really try to keep it at that 30 seconds, guys. Most of you are working on laptops. When you start going over 30 seconds, your computers may start having trouble depending on how much stuff you already have stored on it. Animate uses up a lot of virtual memory. So when you start going over 30 seconds, you might start having issues, especially those of you working on your school laptops. So keeping it at 30 seconds will ensure everything works great. But anywhere between 10 and 30 seconds is perfect. You're going to create a storyboard next. You can create your own, or you can use the Adobe Illustrator template, which is found in the classroom instructions. I'll show you guys where in just a second. The storyboard should show at least 6 frames. Read the assignment introduction and attend or watch the live sessions, which you're doing. Save the brief paragraph from number 1 and the storyboard from number 2, and create a multi-page PDF document and name it DS246 Assignment 1, your first and last name. You're going to submit the single multi-page PDF by the deadline. So let's hop over and look at our classroom one more time. You go into your modules and you go down to the assignment. You see your instructions. If you will scroll down all the way near the bottom where it says assignment instructions, in number 2, you will see the link to download the template. Just click on that little icon and it will start downloading it. And we will take a look at that storyboard template in just a second. Let's talk about forming some creative ideas. I know you guys have probably all been forming your own by now, but anybody that's having trouble, these are the kind of things that you want to check off your list and make sure you get everything into your storyline creation so that everything is solid. Because when you have holes, it makes it harder to animate. So first, you're going to tell me who the company is. Then you're going to tell me what the product or service is. What's the company selling or promoting? Absolutely, Heather. You're going to tell me what the problem is. This is where you determine what the issue is for the product or service. We talked about this yesterday, reasons why the company are doing things. That will determine your problem. If they're having a sell on an item, well, the problem is they need to sell more of that item, right? It could be because they are overstocked. It could be because they got a deal from the vendor. Whatever the case may be, the problem is still they need to sell more of that product. So what is the obvious solution? The thing that needs to happen to fix the problem. You need to get people to buy that product or service, right? Or get them to do something else. The point is you need to get the user, the viewer, to do something. And then you're going to tell me what type of environment you will be using in your animation. Do you guys remember what the environment is? It's kind of like your background, right? It's where the character is going to be. He's not going to be just on a blank artboard, most likely. He might be, depending on what you've got going on, but you're going to tell me that environment. What's going to be there? What's your character going to be inside? Outdoor scene, lake, river, on a globe. There's a million other things it could be. You're just going to kind of describe your environment to me. So how to create a successful storyboard. Every scene must serve a purpose. Meaning there should be a reason you have that scene. When creating your storyboard, don't do things like cut to another screen unless there's a reason you're doing that. Don't just make it flash from one thing to the other unless that's the point. We're going to go through all of these principles. That's basically what these are. This is the principles to animation. But there is always, just like you've learned in design, there is always times that you can break that rule and it's perfectly acceptable. But if you're breaking that rule and it's leaving your viewer going, huh? You most likely have an issue. Unless, of course, that's the point. Be sure you mention things like that, though. Especially on your storyboard in those comments. Mention those kind of things when you know you're doing something that's completely outside of the normal principles. Tell me why you're doing. Don't move the camera unless necessary. Use camera moves to reveal jokes or again to direct the audience's focus to something necessary for the comprehension of a story. So, how many of you watched animations all the time? You guys probably never realized it. You'll start realizing it now. Think of the latest animated ads you've watched. Ever seen one that zooms into something? It has the main picture there and then it zooms into something specific. That is camera movement. That's what this is talking about. If it's not necessary you do that, then don't. Because why? It adds emphasis to things. And if you add emphasis to something that doesn't need it, you really start confusing the user. That person that's watching it's trying to figure out, okay, wait a second, but they zoomed into that hook, not the fishing pole. So what are they actually selling here? Get the idea? Be sure whatever you're adding emphasis to is what should have the emphasis on it. You're going to watch for jump cuts. A jump cut is a cut from scene to scene that appears to pop. It usually comes from cutting one angle framing to a very similar angle framing. It's very jarring to look at, as it will appear that things in your scene just kind of jump into place. So they just kind of slightly move. And it is the #1 easiest and most common mistake. Why? Because in one scene your character is here and then somehow accidentally in the next frame you bumped your character over just a little bit. Not so that it's really noticeable when you're scanning through your frames, but when you play it, that character seems to just jump a little bit. Those are things you have to go back and fix. Watch your composition. Be sure that you make the most of your negative space. Don't draw a little tiny character in your frame and nothing but background around him unless you're doing it for a reason, like to show that he's all alone or something like that. But make sure that your scenes and characters are in approximate sizes. You know, they kind of match. If you got a little bitty character and big, huge flowers, well, if that's a little bitty tiny man, and that's the whole point of your advertisement, then absolutely go for it. But if that is not the premises behind your animation, then make sure things are sized appropriately. The man should be bigger than the flower, right? You want to watch your axis. In a scene, there is an imaginary line called an axis. It is a line that your camera can never jump across. Consider two characters speaking to each other. Think of the Disney movies you've watched or any other animated advertisements, and think of the scenes where characters are talking to each other. The axis would be found by drawing a straight line through the center of these characters. Which direction are characters normally facing when we see them in an animation? And they're talking to each other. Are they both facing each other, or do we see this profile? Or do we see the back of one of them's head? How does that usually work? It's okay, Sarah. We usually see a profile, right? So that we get a little bit of both characters. Occasionally, the camera will angle so that we really see one head on, but we're still getting the profile of the other. Not very often do we just see the back of a character's head, unless it was done for a specific reason. Sometimes they do that to hide things from the audience, so it's more like a one-sided conversation kind of thing. Those are the kind of things you want to watch for and play with. Avoid complicated angles. Chances are that your work will be done by more than one person other than just yourself. So you want to make sure that anyone can understand what you want and what you have illustrated on your board. And make sure, and how does that work? And think about this. If you've drawn flat scenes and you've suddenly taken a scene and it's at this very complicated angle and you've sketched it out, that's no big deal. You sketched it out, your proportions may not be exactly right, your perspective is a little off, but it's just a rough sketch, no big deal. The problem is, guys, and keep this in mind for yourselves, drawing and creating graphics that are the correct perspective for your camera angles gets very complicated, especially when you have a lot of different things in your scene, because perspectives are the hardest to draw. How many of you have any experience drawing different perspectives? Or how many of you have tried to create some different perspectives, like 3D boxes and things like that? It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, is it? It takes practice and refining and all of that kind of good stuff. If you stay away from those in your 2D animations, they will be so much better, because all it takes is just a little bit of the perspective being wrong and users start noticing. Yeah, as Dwayne says, he draws daily. It is difficult. It's difficult for all of us. I draw all the time. And drawing perspectives, especially when you're taking the exact same object and then drawing it in another perspective, it becomes complicated. Unless, of course, you can actually physically pick up that object and move it so you're looking at it. But when you're trying to do all of this in your head, doing those perspectives becomes very, very complicated. Watch your continuity. One of the most common mistakes found in storyboards is a lack of continuity. You need to make sure that everything remains consistent throughout the sequence. Characters need to be in correct positions from scene to scene. You need to keep track of where they move to. Props need to be all accounted for, and sizes of characters and objects in the background need to follow closely. And think about all the Disney movies you've watched, and we hear about it every time Disney comes out with a new movie. That in one scene, there's a candlestick, in the very next scene, same room, same place, that candlestick is missing, or that teapot is missing, that painting is different, whatever it is, and that's continuity. It happens. It's another one of the most easiest mistakes to make. You accidentally put that image in the wrong place or that graphic in the wrong place, and so it's different from the scene prior, but technically it's in the exact same room. So you kind of have to keep track of that. Don't be lazy with your poses. A lot of people try to take shortcuts when storyboarding and put a few poses into their board as possible. It is less work when it comes to actually doing the animation if you have already thought how each pose should be and sketched it out. So those of you that plan on using actual human type characters or animals, be sure you're thinking about those poses. If they have to walk through a door, sit down in a chair, anything like that, go ahead and start working out those poses. It will make your job so much easier next week when you are doing your final graphics. Start planning out those poses if you're doing things like that. Car doors opening, that sort of thing. Draw those through perspectives. When the car door opens, it swings open, right? Well, it's different perspective as it swings. So start roughly sketching where those need to be so that you get a clean motion there. Any questions? See if my video will work today. Can you guys see this?
The following has been paraphrased from The Illusion of Life by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. Squash and stretch. This action gives the illusion of weight and volume to a character as it moves. Anticipation. Prepares the audience for a major action the character is about to perform. Each major action is preceded with specific moves that anticipate for the audience what is about to happen. Staging. It's the presentation of an idea so that it is clear.
Straight ahead and pose to pose. Pose to pose is charted with key drawings done at intervals throughout the scene. Straight ahead animation starts at the first drawing and works drawing to the end of the scene. Follow through and overlap. When the main body of the character stops, all other parts continue to catch up to the main mass. Nothing stops all at once. Slow in and slow out. As the action starts, we have more drawings near the starting pose, one or two in the middle, and more drawings near the next pose. Fewer drawings make the action faster, and more drawings make the action slower. Arcs. All actions, with few exceptions, follow an arc or slightly circular path. Arcs give animation a more natural action and better flow. Secondary action. It's an additional action in the scene used as a supplement of the main one in order to reinforce it and add more dimension. Timing. More drawings between poses slow and smooth the action. Fewer drawings make the action faster and crisper. Timing maintains the appearance of an object abiding by the laws of physics. Exaggeration. Remain true to reality, just presenting it in a wild or more extreme form. Solid drawings. It means taking into account forms in three-dimensional space, giving them volume and weight. Appeal. It's a quality of charm, able to please the viewer's eyes. It's the charisma of the action.
Now then, that is the cutest cube ever, isn't it? What is the one thing that you notice throughout the entire thing? They talked about one rule specifically, one principle that they applied from start to finish. They exaggerated everything, did they not? Yep, in physics, in the exaggeration. Everything was exaggerated at least a little bit. And that is the number one thing you're going to see in any advertisement you watch. Think about all the animated ads you've watched. There's exaggerated movement, is there not? The movement tends to be a little more drastic than what it is in real life. Why? Because it's more entertaining. We get the point. This is an animated object. It's not 3D. It's really just 2D. And so we exaggerate things to make sure the user understands what's happening. And so the exaggeration in reality takes away from the little things that are missed, especially with walking, running, jumping. When you exaggerate things, it takes away from the fact that really the movement should be a little more smooth. It should be there should be a few more poses in there when they only have 3, and there should be 6. But that exaggeration keeps you from actually visually recognizing that. Yeah, it's kind of like the Pixar logo with the lamp. Absolutely. So now we're going to watch a video, and with those 12 principles that we just saw, I want you guys to tell me what's wrong with this animation. There's a couple of really major things wrong with this animation. Whoops. Yeah, definitely it's boring. The arrow. Thank you, Heather. It went the wrong direction. What should have happened when that arrow hit the balloon? Should have gone through it. Probably started angling downward, right? Because it hit something, so it's been thrown off its path. Most likely the balloon would have hung to that arrow, right? And weighed it down. Depending on how hard the arrow was shot, but most likely the balloon would have hung on it at some point, whether it had been the tip or the end, because it didn't get fully through it before the latex on that balloon caught on something. Those are the things that you have to watch for, because it's really, really easy to make those kind of mistakes. So let's hop over now and let's take a look at Illustrator. Make my screen bigger for you guys so you can see it. Now, this is the template, guys. Yeah, the glitch is more of where the arrow jumps backwards, like the balloon, which is stronger than the arrow, which we know is not true. This is your storyboard. If you download the template, this is exactly what you get. You're going to get 12 blank boxes. Now, if you open your layers panel, you will see your base frames, which are the boxes, and you will see where you should put your sketching. Let's turn that off for a second and unlock the base frame. So if you're only doing 6 frames, scene 3 is misspelled, it sure is. I did not do this template. If you only want 6 scenes, then simply unlock that layer, select the scenes you do not need, and take them off. End up making this board look professional, guys. So instead of having 4 scenes in one layer on one row and 2 on the next, just move those around so everything is evened up and you get kind of centered. Get where I'm going with this? Make it look professional. Slide everything around, rearrange it, make it look good on the artboard. Absolutely. If you do 6 scenes, then you can add your storyline right down here at the bottom of it, and all you have to do is turn in one file. Now you can do 12 scenes. Sometimes it is easier, depending on what your animation is, to block it out all in 12 scenes. I kind of started an animation here that is going to deal a lot with text and a few graphics kind of thing. And you can see the first scene opens up with just these little splashes on the screen. Immediately, there won't be a half a second in here. You're going to see these splashes start to rearrange. Eventually, they collide and bounce off of each other, and splash will appear. And then ideas will move in from the right-hand side of the screen and bump into splash and push it over, and then it'll kind of bounce back and it'll say splash ideas, which you get in scene 7. And then splash ideas is going to disappear using the blind animation. You've seen those animations where it looks like blinds are opening or closing and the things are disappearing? That's what's going to happen here. And then it's going to jump into another scene that's going to talk about printing. Splash Ideas is a printing company. They do printing, apparel, vinyl graphics, web design, that sort of thing. So in the next scene, there's going to be a little down arrow because printing is going to come down from the top of the screen. There's going to be a little sketch here. It's absolutely fine with me, guys, if you rough draw things out. And a piece of paper is going to come out of here. Like that, and this paper is going to have something on it. Probably a picture of a mock-up of business cards or something like that. Dwayne's excited. Good. That's the idea. This should be fun. So guys, don't think that you have to do all your finished graphics. You do not. You can sketch stuff, and it can just be rough sketches. Does that look like a bunch of printed press wheels and a piece of paper coming out of it? Not necessarily, but you get the idea. Now, I would go back in and add a little arrow here. Oops, wrong way. Add a little arrow here by simply drawing an arc and adding an arrow to the end of it. And I'm going to rotate it to show that paper is going to slide through those 2 wheels. So I know what's happening there. Arrows are the best thing you can do. And don't forget your descriptions. You can, after you unlock that layer, you can double click on that text box, put your cursor in it, and do your description, and it just needs to be something simple that tells me what's happening. Opening scene for this one. Nothing's really happening there. It's just an opening scene. And what I do suggest is you guys start trying to figure out your seconds. It will help you next week. I'm going to say half a second here. And then here, the splashes rotate and start to collide. And we'll give that probably 2 seconds. Let's just collide and bounce off one another. And I'll give that 2 more seconds. Your descriptions can be brief. I'm not expecting you guys to write me a paragraph there. Just simple, this is what's happening here. Splashes collide and bounce off one another, 2 seconds. And then splash is going to appear, 2 seconds. Ideas slide in and collide with splash, maybe another 2 seconds. You get where I'm going with this? So I would probably end up with, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 and a half seconds for my first 8 scenes. Now, scene 9 is going to take a little longer. It's probably going to take something like 3 to 5 seconds because it will talk about the printing. Scene 10 is going to talk about the apparel. Scene 11 is going to talk about final graphics. And then scene 12 will be a simple ending. Yeah, that's fine, Heather. You can do the storyboard however you want it. The templates is just there if you want to use it so you don't have to create your own. Ah, I love Amazon too, Sarah. So it's going to be 12 scenes, and we're likely to have, let's see, 14, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 and a half, 17, 20, 23. And this 12th scene will fill out the rest of my 30 seconds. And it's going to be like a typography kind of thing. That is where you're going with your storyboard. Just kind of give me an idea of how it's going to play out. That doesn't mean every single motion that's going to happen within that scene has to be depicted. Just give me a general idea. Like my splashes are going to rotate and do all kinds of interesting things. But the main point of it is they're going to start to raise up a little bit and move towards one another so that they end up colliding. And they're going to bounce off one of each other and spread out to where they're supposed to be. And the word splash will appear. And again, you can sketch, guys. You're not being graded on your drawing skills here. But you are being graded on your concept. So if you don't think I'm going to be able to tell what you just drew there, make sure your description tells me what you just drew there. And what's happening with that object. What's it going to do? That sort of thing. This should not be that difficult. I don't want to see your final graphics, so don't spend a lot of time on your graphics yet. Spend the time on developing that creative idea you've already got flying around in your head. That's where I want you to spend most of your time, is actually coming up with that storyline and the idea of your animation. You're going to have all next week to work on those final graphics. That's the assignment next week, is your final graphics. Now, if you have quick graphics, like my splash ideas, that's a logo. It was already made, so I used it. So if you've already got final graphics made, that's fine. Use them on your storyboard and sketch the rest. But don't think that you have to have final graphics or that everything has to be colored, that sort of thing. It doesn't. A black and white sketch works just fine for me. I just want to know where your thought process is, where your creative ideas are going. That way I can say, well, back up. This might be more that you might have bitten off more than you can chew, so to speak. This is going to be a complicated animation. Are you sure you're going to have time to put into it to get it to where you want it? That sort of thing. I can see those things from your storyboards. I have enough experience with it that I can recognize what's going on there and say, oh, that's going to take a little bit more work than you might be prepared for. Or that's going to be perfect. Any questions on the storyboard, guys, or my expectations as far as what I'm expecting to see? Just make sure you fill in your descriptions. And if you want to get a step ahead and make things easier for you in the coming weeks, figure out your seconds. How long is it going to take that object to do this to get to the second scene? Or to do this to get to the next scene? Go ahead and start figuring that out, because it will make your job that much easier next week when you're actually setting up your timeline and moving your final graphics into Animate. You won't be doing any animation yet, but you will be putting your stuff into Animate next week once you finish your final graphics. To these estimates, no, your animation has to be 10 to 30 seconds long. You are bound by that. If you go over 30 seconds, hopefully you're not working on a laptop, because you might start having problems. If it's over 30 seconds, that's fine, but it has to be under, it cannot be more than 1 minute, guys. An animated advertisement that lasts more than a minute, you've lost everybody. 30 seconds is the window you truly have to get your point across before outside distractions start taking over. So you kind of want to keep it in that 10 to 30 seconds. It's really hard to get everything you need into 10 seconds. It can be done in some cases, but it is difficult to get everything you need in 10 seconds. 30 seconds is usually the average animated advertisement. And the length of the scene is totally dependent on you and how long you think it'll take to get from point A to point B in that scene, and it not be too fast for the user. You may have to play around with it so you're not stuck. If you set a time, you set a scene at 2 seconds and realize once you start animating in week 3 that this scene really needed to be 4 seconds long because that was quick, you're not stuck at whatever you put in your storyboard. You can adjust those times there. But if you start figuring them out now, it just makes it easier in week 3 and in week 2 when you're putting stuff on your timeline. Any other questions? Be creative. Have fun with this, guys. This should not be stressful. That's why I don't want you guys to concentrate on final graphics this week. Just give me a rough sketch. Use the tools in Illustrator just to draw something rough. It gives me an idea of what's going on there. Don't stress over those final graphics. That's for next week. If you get your storyboard done early, then yeah, absolutely start working on those final graphics. You'll just be one step ahead next week. But for the assignment itself, don't worry about your final graphics. Don't worry that your sketching is rough. Just make sure you tell me in the description what's happening there. Make sure you use arrows so I get an idea of which way objects are moving and that sort of thing. You guys understand? You got this? Remember, keep it fun. If you're stressing over it, it's not fun. So if you start stressing, shoot me an email, send me a text message, and let's work through that. Get excited. This is going to be fun, I promise. Remember, keep it simple. I know a lot of your creative ideas are flying around, and they're truly complicated. Scale it back. Use those creative ideas, but make it more simpler. As we saw yesterday, the simplest animations can be truly entertaining. Okay, let's hop back to our PowerPoint. And let's talk about the week 1 assessment. Your assessment must include the minimum requirements. The list below is not a step-by-step on how to do your animation. This is just the things that you need to make sure you have in your animation. In order to be able to create the correct type of symbol for your creature to animate on its own timeline, you will need to watch the tutorials in your course media and the demo, of course. You're going to create a new HTML5 canvas document using Adobe Animate. You're going to make the stage size 500 pixels by 350 pixels. You're going to set the frame rate at 24 frames per second. If it's the first time you've used Animate, it will automatically be set at 24 frames per second. That's the default setting. You're going to make the animation 10 to 15 seconds long and only play once. I'm going to draw a creature using any or all the shape tools. Add some type of wings or something that will animate to make it look like your creature is flying. And Melissa, the companies for the assignment for your animated ad can really be anything you choose. Some examples would be things like nurseries, coffee shops, cafes, bakeries. It can be anything. Any company you choose, any company that sells a product or service, or if you decide to do a public service kind of thing, you can do that as well. It just needs to be a real company because it will make it easier for you to identify their target market and things that they may have right now that are on sale or some promotion they may be having right now. It will make it easier for you to come up with a creative idea if you already have a general direction based on that, what that real company is doing at the moment. Make sense? Okay, note, step 5 and 6 can be done in Illustrator or right in Animate. It is your choice. So you can draw your creature in Illustrator and bring it into Animate if that's easier for you, or you can draw in Animate. I would strongly encourage all of you to attempt at least drawing a few things in Animate so you get used to those drawing tools. You're going to import or make your creature a symbol and animate the wings or whatever you drew to allow your creature to fly in that symbol's timeline, meaning you're going to have a nested motion twin. You're going to draw a fun background or environment. The creature must either start off the stage or leave and come back to the stage. You're going to animate the creature symbol on the main timeline to move it at least 3 different directions. Animate the creature symbol to do at least 1 loop. The creature's face must orient to the loop's path. Animate the creature symbol on the main timeline to either land or take off or bounce off the ground or the floor of the stage. Add at least 1 ease in, ease out property on any of the required movements above. Do not use the character or the background from the tutorial that's in the course media page. Doing so will cause you to receive no points on the assessment. There is a tutorial in the course media page for movement as well. Do not use that background or that character. Make your own. What does 11 mean? Animate the creature symbol to do at least one loop. We will go through that. Simply means it's going to do a little loop in the sky or the air or whatever environment it's in. It's just going to do a little loop, kind of like a roller coaster, and then keep flying. We will go over that. So let's hop into animate. And again, guys, sorry, my animate's having a moment. Again, if you want, you can download the practice files that I am about to use so that you can practice and follow along with the lecture. The practice files are in the announcements. It's just a animate file. It's just a flash file. But sometimes, as I said earlier, it's easier to learn if you're actually doing it on what I'm showing you and then applying it to your own character versus trying to take what I've shown you on my character and apply it to your character. Nope, Sarah, it has to be a real company. Okay, I think we're open. Let's go to my animate. Okay, so the first thing you guys are going to do is create a new HTML5 canvas. You can do create new, click on HTML5 canvas. It's going to open up this little white artboard. If you click in your gray space over here, gray space right beside the artboard, and you click on your properties tab, right up here in this top corner. You know what, guys, let me share my entire desktop so you guys can see my menus and everything. Okay, I'm gonna click on that properties tab. After you've clicked in gray space over here beside your artboard, if you do not see your properties tab, go to window at the very top of your screen and just come down to properties and click on it. And then right here in this bottom corner, oops, sorry guys, my mouse seems to think it has a mind of its own today. Back to animate. Okay, then over here in your properties panel, right here under the section that says properties, you see this size? This is where you're going to set your size. Now, according to the directions, the size was supposed to be 550 by 350. I have a spinny. Yay. I'm going to have to shut Illustrator down. Illustrator and Animate don't like each other very much. Just FYI, guys. Things start acting funny and slowing down. It's usually because you've got more than one Adobe program open, and Animate doesn't like that very often. 500 by 350. So let's go back into Animate. And I'm going to simply click in that box and change this to 500. And click where it says 400, change it to 350. And as you see, 24 frames per second is the default, and that is standard. And it will probably already be set that way unless you have manually changed it before and Animate didn't change it back to the default. Otherwise, it will be just like that. And this is where you're going to draw your background and your character. I'm going to hop in here and open up the practice file. This is the file you will download. This is the one we're going to use to demonstrate flying. I'm going to grab my black arrow, my selection tool. And this butterfly, you can see, is in multiple pieces. He's been drawn, he's in multiple pieces. I'm going to grab that black arrow and just draw a big square over him. So it selects all of him. And go up to modify and convert to symbol. And just give him a name. And it's not a button, it's going to be a movie clip. Yours should, if you haven't used Animate before, it's already going to say movie clip there. And you're just going to hit OK. And so now you have your character and basically it's grouped together. If you click on your libraries button right up there next to your properties tab, you will see your butterfly in your library now. So I'm going to delete that butterfly off my artboard. It will stay in my library. And I'm going to double click on the little icon next to it, the little movie clip symbol. Double click on it. And it opens up. And your timeline should be at the bottom of your screen. Again, if it's not, you can go up to Windows and then click on timeline and it will open it up. And then you can just pull it down to the bottom and anchor it, or you can anchor it above your artboard. It's your preference. I like mine at the bottom, but you may decide you like yours better at the top. Once you have your butterfly open in its motion tween, and you can tell by the top if you're in the right place, because the top of your screen should say scene and then the name of your movie clip. Tells you exactly where you are. We need to make this butterfly go on to different layers. So if you right click on the frame, these guys, these little bitty squares right here, those are frames. This is a frame, this is a frame, this is a frame, this is your frame ruler bar. This is frame 1, that's frame 5, frame 6, frame 7, and so forth. If you right click on frame 1, we want to break it apart. Let's see, there's normally an option here. Come on. There it is. I'm sorry, now you have to click on the object itself, not the layer. Right click on your creature, in this case, my butterfly, and you're going to simply go down and do distribute to layers. And it broke your butterfly apart and put it in a lot of layers. I'm going to scale this so we can see everything there. And so now I'm going to go through and figure out where we are. Here's a wing. There's my wing layer. I'm going to rename that. Double click on that layer name, and that would be left wing. And this is the right wing. And this is, oops, my antennas. And my body. That's his head. And I have no idea what that is. Oh, that's his eye. That's his right eye. Right eye, which makes this one his left eye. And layer 1 is now empty. You can tell that layer 1 is empty. Move my playhead out of the way here. You can tell frame 1 is empty because it is dark gray instead of light gray with a black dot. Light gray with a black dot means there's something in that frame. Dark gray, no black dot, it's empty. There's nothing there. So I can click on layer 1 and throw it in the trash can. So now we need to make things fly. Well, the first thing we need to do is a motion tween requires at least 24 frames. It has to have at least 24 frames in order to create a motion tween. So I'm going to go out to frame 24, and just like when you're highlighting text in Microsoft Word, I'm going to click, hold my mouse button down, and then just drag down. And it will select all of those frames for me. And I'm going to right click on that frame and do insert frame. It's going to add 24 frames to every single layer. If I don't do that, then part of that butterfly is not going to show. When I get out to frame 24, part of it will have disappeared. Make sure your frames are even. And I'm going to go and click on, let's do the right wing first. I'm going to click on it, right click on it, and do create motion tween. And then I'm going to go back to frame 12. That's about halfway. We need to do, let's see, it's open. We need to flap up and then flap back down. So really I need 3 motions, but I'm going to need it to be longer than a second, I think. Let's go out. Let's see, that would be 12. That would be 48 frames, but that would be 2 seconds to flap. That'd be pretty good. So I'm going to go out to 48 there, and I'm going to add some more frames. And then go back to frame 12. My cursor there, you see the little red line? That's your playlet. That's what's called the playhead. That shows you exactly where you're working in your timeline. And make sure your wing is selected. And I'm going to go over and grab the free transform tool. This little tool right here, your free transform tool. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom of the screen and I'm going to turn on the onion skinning so that I can see what's going on. That little button right down there at the bottom is your onion skinning. And this little blue dot, you see the little thing that appeared on your ruler bar right here, right there. I'm going to take that little blue dot and I'm going to pull it all the way back to frame 1. And you see it kind of turn my wing an odd kind of color there. That's okay because it's going to help me see how far I've scaled. So I need to flap the wing up. See what's happening? That's not right, is it? That's not going to look like you're flapping. You're going to have to take this little white dot. That is the anchor. It determines where you scale from. If it's in the center and you scale one side, it will automatically scale the other side. So I'm going to drag that white dot all the way down to the body of my butterfly and then go back and scale this wing. And it needs to come up. And it shows you the motion and that wing's going to go through to get to that position. It needs to scale up. And then I'm going to go out and I'm going to click in frame 24. And again, I'm going to drag that blue dot all the way back to 1 because I need to see where I need to flap back to. So we've gone all the way up. And now I can go all the way back down so that it's even. Now I could go out 24 more frames. I'm afraid this is going to be a little too quick. That's going to be a speedy butterfly. So when that happens, and it will inevitably happen, you're going to see this and think, okay, I've got it. And you're going to go over here and test it. And think, well, that's going to be kind of fast, flying on a path. And butterflies, generally, my scene, he's going to be a lazy butterfly, and he's just going to be kind of enjoying the day, so to speak. So he needs to fly a little slower. So I need to adjust my motion tween. I'm going to go back to that keyframe. Those little black dots indicate where you have changed the shape or the position of an object, and they're known as keyframes. I need to move that keyframe. Click off that layer, click back on top of just that single keyframe. And I want to make this last a little longer, so I'm going to pull it out to the very end. And then I'm going to go back to that first keyframe where he flaps up. I want that to be slower as well. So I'm going to pull it out to about frame 24. So now it's a little bit slower. More kind of lazy. But you see that flapping motion, guys? That's how it works. All it is an optical illusion. That's all it is. Because it's truly not flapping. It's just an optical illusion that makes it look like it's flapping. And all I did was use the transform tool. All I did was scale it. And we're going to do the left wing the exact same way. So I'm going to click on it, right click, create motion tween, go out to frame 24, move my little white dot over to the butterfly's body, and take this wing and scale it up so it matches, and then go out to the very end, frame 48, put my wing, take my onion skinning, pull it all the way back to frame 1, and drag it back out so it matches. And now I have a butterfly, so I can turn off my onion skinning. Let's clear my red marks. Hit rewind, unselect everything, and hit play. Now, what's wrong with it? My antennas shouldn't be on top of my wings, right? So I can just grab that antenna layer, and I'm going to drag it down to the very bottom. Now, I could simply do that for an easy fix. If I wanted to exaggerate that motion, I could leave my antenna wings where they are and do a motion tween on them. Pull my playhead out. Let's see, they need to all the way right there. Right click, create motion tween. I automatically converted it to a symbol there. Oops, wrong layer. Remove tween antennas. I could take this and make it so those antennas squish, and then come back out, flip on that onion skinning again, and I'm going to turn off my wings so I can see just the onion skinning for my antennas, and bring them back out, and then rewind. So you get something like that. Or I could simply drag them to the bottom. Totally up to you on how you handle things like that. Depends on your butterfly and what you want to show. Again, you are not being graded on your drawing, guys. I'm not grading you on your creature the way it's drawn. I am grading you on creating the motion tweens, and setting up your timeline correctly. So do not get stressed out about the fact your creature, you don't like the way he looks necessarily. I'm more worried about the fact that you can make a motion tween, you can make wings flap, and you can put it on a path and make it fly. And that you've created your environment, not necessarily how well that environment is drawn or sketched. That's not important in this assignment. Now then, what you've created, because you did this on the timeline that's inside this movie clip, is called a nested tween. It plays independently of the main timeline. So it will automatically loop over and over and over because it's independent of the main timeline. Which means, if I go back to scene 1, this is our main timeline. You notice there's no butterfly there because it's in our library over here. And its wings will flap continually forever because it plays independent of the timeline. It automatically loops. You don't have to make it. Automatically does it over and over and over and over and over and over and will not stop until the video itself has been turned off and stopped. Even when you can't see it, it's still going. So now we have to create an environment. So you're just going to put something together. I strongly encourage you, especially for the assessment guys, play with your drawing tools in Animate. We're going to make a mailbox. Drawing tools in Animate will do some really cool things. I drew a circle. If I hover over the bottom of this circle, you guys see my cursor changing? Yeah, Sarah, we'll get there. We just made it flap its wings right now. Now we're drawing the environment for it to fly around wind and do its loop. You guys see how my cursor changes? And get that little curved line. Can you guys see that? If you hold your mouse button down, you can customize the shape to do and be more the shape you want it to be. That's better. So then, finish drawing my mailbox. Going to grab, do I want another circle? I think I want a rounded rectangle. I'm going to make a new layer for that. Flip to the bottom. In my properties panel, I'm going to draw out my square here and grab my black arrow, double click it, and I want to move it down, and then I've got to edit it a little bit. In there. Oh, not this layer. I'm going to lock that so it's out of our way. There it is. It needs to be rounded. And I need to change the color. I want this to be, I'm going to open my color panel. Instead of making it just a solid color, I'm going to add a bit of a gradient to it. You do that inside your color panel. You can't do it from your properties panel. You have to go over here to your little color panel. And right here where it says solid color, you have some choices. You can do a linear, a radial, or you could fill it with a bitmap, like an image. I'm going to do a linear. And I don't want it quite that black. Like that. And then I'm going to go to my transform tool. and choose the gradient transform. Works kind of like the one in Illustrator. And I'm going to turn this a little bit like that. And now I want to go back and work on these corners. That's better. That's better. And then I need, of course, my flap. So I'm going to have to draw another square here. And I want a new layer. Like that. My square. And I'm going to make it a solid color for the moment. And kind of try and arrange this here. And of course, I'm going to have to use these drawing tools to change the perspective a little bit. And then I need to add a stroke to it. But as you notice, when I double click it to select it so that I get my color panel over here, it won't allow me to click on that stroke. I'm going to have to go down and find my ink bottle. It is the paint bucket that has a little shape with it. Here's the regular paint bucket that will change your feel. I need to grab my ink bottle. And I'm going to set this to a different color. Oops. I need to unselect it first. Off. And I want a darker gray color, and I'm going to click right on the edge. Now I have a bit of a black line there. I'm going to click it. And double click it so it selects just that outline. And I'm going to make it a bit bigger. Oops, too big. That's better. That's better. And then I'm going to choose that color in the center by clicking it one time just to select the solid fill color. And I'm going to go to my colors panel. And I'm going to do linear again. This time I want it a little bit different. That. And once again, grab my gradient transform tool. And I'm just going to rotate this to get what I want. Kind of like that. And now let's see how well my drawing skills score. Not bad. I might play around with this a little bit to make it match a little bit more. That's better. Still a little too big. I'm going to click on it with my actual transform tool. Move that little white dot a little bit. Oops, I didn't get it all selected. There we go. That's better. So we get kind of a mailbox kind of going on. You get the idea. It's not perfect. Normally when I'm doing graphics like this, I do use Illustrator simply because It's easier, especially when I'm doing something detailed. That's better. And then we need our post, of course. And it needs to be a different color. I'm going to find brown color. Rearrange that a little bit. And we have a post. So I'm getting there with my background. Got my mailbox done. I'm going to make a new layer. And let's go. This is my main box. And side box. And this is flap. And this is going to be my background. So I'm going to grab my square tool. Draw a big square across my artboard. And I want this to be a gradient too, because I want it to look more like the sky. Once again, that gradient transform box. Better. So issue box up there. I just put it on a different layer is all I did. If you are drawing and just drawing, which means you can select the background and it gets these little dots. See those little dots on it that show you it's selected? You can't do arrange, because if I were to take a shape on the same layer, and let's say I drew a circle. If I go back and select that circle and move it, it will automatically erase what was there behind that circle. In order to keep from doing that, you can go down to your side menu here, or you can do it in your properties panel as well. There is, you can't see it on mine. When you click on your drawing tool, like your rectangle or your circle or your polygon, if you look in the layers panel, there, right underneath the stroke and the fill, right underneath here, right here, it's called drawing, object drawing mode. Right now it's off, which means I can click on stuff, and when I select it, it gets those little dots. But if I click object drawing mode on, it's going to draw like an Illustrator. You will get a bounding box so that everything is an individual piece, and you can just move it without affecting anything else in the artboard. And you can still hover over it and change the shape of things. You just have to make sure when you click that shape tool, you turn on your object drawing mode. Otherwise, it draws everything in bitmap is basically what's happening. Drawing everything in bitmap. And so it breaks apart in little pieces instead of being points and acres. Make sense? Okay, so you're getting your environment done. Some flowers here. Come on, copy, paste. And my copy and pasting doesn't want to work today. Copy, paste and center. There it is. Oh, there they are. I was just pasting in the background. Play around with your environment, guys. Have fun with this. So be creative, try different things. Like I said, you're not being graded on your drawing skills. And in this case, I can click on that one. And like you suggested, I can send it backwards so that it's behind everything. As long as your object drawing mode is on. If it's not on, you cannot do that. And you have a brush tool that you all should take a look at. You click on your brush tool. Let me make sure nothing's selected first. You click on your brush tool, you have two of them. You have what's called the paintbrush tool and the brush tool. They are two different things for a reason. Animent has adopted a lot of things from Illustrator. If you click on your paintbrush tool, you can go over to your properties panel, and where it says styles, you have a drop down which gives you several different types of strokes. Or you can click on this little brush library icon. It will open up this little panel. And you've got all your arrows, just like you have in Illustrator. You've got artistic stuff, your charcoal, your ink, your paint brushes, your scroll pens. Then you've got decorative stuff in here, and text dividers, your line art, your pattern brushes, your vector pack, which is the hand-drawn type stuff. And you can use all of that. I'm going to click on this little hand-drawn here. And My stroke is 0.5. I'm going to make that smaller. Be a little bigger. So I'm going to click on it. 2. Not quite big enough. Oops. You double click on something, that's likely to happen. It will take you into kind of like a selection mode, just like Illustrator. Oops. And I have a rainbow spinny again. Come on, there we go. Too big. That works. And I'm going to grab my little ink bottle again. And I'm going to add some little artistic stroke to my petals. Turn back on my mailbox. I want to select my flower, not my artboard, just my flower. And I want to move this flower around. Oh, looks like I have my mailbox selected. Whoops. Inanimate is being a pain today. Sorry, guys, I'm moving really, really slow. And looks like I moved part of my line. Oops. There we go. I want to pull this over here, and you can see it's going to be behind my mailbox, which is not where I want it. So I'm going to cut it off there. And I'm going to make a new layer up here at the top to actually put that on. Simply cut it and paste it. All of you are going to run into that. Animate kind of tries to take over occasionally in your screen. Every time you move your mouse button, the screen will move. Even when you're not trying to move anything. Just go up to the top, fit window, and then go to show all, and it will stop it, but it will happen to all of you. It kind of drives me nuts sometimes. So I've got a little environment here, and you could do all kinds of stuff, guys. Again, it's not so much important what you put there, as long as it makes sense and your layers are doing what they're supposed to do. Your motion tweens, your layers, all of that is set up. So our directions said our animation needed to be how long? 10 to 15 seconds. So how many frames is in 10 seconds? $240. That is correct, because there are 24 frames per second. So in order to get 10 seconds, you have to have 240 frames. So I'm going to go out this little slider. You have several sliders at the bottom of your on your timeline. You have your side slider. You have this little slider here, and you have this little slider here. If you want to move in your timeline right to left, you use this slider. It will allow you to slide back and forth. If you want to be able to see more frames, so let's say we go out to frame 240. And we highlight all those frames, and we insert frame. You can't see the timeline? Let me change my share. Just a second. So now that makes my animate looks bigger, right? So this is the slider I'm talking about, this one right down here. If you want to go left and right, you use this slider. And you can just drag it out. It will slide it over so you can see your frames. We need to go out to frame 240, right here. Now highlight all those frames, right click, insert frame. And I'm going to get a little rainbow ball. There we go. And as you can tell, right down here at the bottom, 10 seconds. There are 10 seconds right there. It tells us we've got our 10 seconds. So I know my animation needs to be at least this long. It needs to run 10 seconds. Now, if I scroll back over so that I can see frame 1, you notice I can't see frame 240. If I wanted to see frame 240 in this window, this other little slider right here, this slider right here, will allow you to compact your frames and make them smaller. I can grab it and squish it over, and you see how everything is getting closer and closer and closer together. I still can't see all 240 of them. You can't see where I am. You can't see the very bottom of my screen. Okay, well, there are 2 scroll bars at the bottom of your screen. The first one on the left will scroll left to right so you can see your timeline. The one on the furthest to the right will make your frames bigger and smaller. I do not suggest you collapse them all and make them tiny, because it's really hard to get inside the frame you actually need to be in because they're so close together. You don't have to make them too big because they will get huge. But make them somewhere average so you can tell the difference between frames and where you need to be. So now we've got 10 seconds. So now, I'm going to rename this. This is my flower layer. And my animate is really having trouble tonight. There's my flower. I'm going to make sure all my layers are locked and create a new one, because this is where my animation is going to go. I'm just going to call it animation. I'm going to go to my libraries panel, click on that library tab, and pull out my butterfly. There's my butterfly, and it's definitely too big, right? We talked about proximity and making sure everything was sized fairly accurately. You can exaggerate a little bit, that's no big deal, but don't make something gigantic that shouldn't be gigantic unless you're doing it for a reason. Just drag and drop it. Yep, you just grab it, drag it to your artboard, and it will place itself there. Now your directions say you have to start off your artboard, you have to make the butterfly fly off. I'm going to go ahead and just drag mine off. Let's change my zoom here a little bit. You put the image in the library. When you make it a symbol, it automatically appears in the library. I walked you through that in the very beginning of this demo. So if you have to watch the recording to get that part, you can, but you just make it a symbol and it will show up into the library. Okay, so now we have to make this butterfly do what? It has to move 3 different directions. It has to do a loop, and it has to land and take off, right? So we got a bunch of things we have to do. I'm going to show you guys the easiest way to accomplish all of that. You're going to make a new layer on top of that animate layer. You do not have to rename it because it's not going to stay a layer for long. Grab your paintbrush tool. Make sure you've gotten a color that you're going to be able to see against your background. I'm going to make mine black. And then I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so we can see that stroke really well. Here's my butterfly. So it has to go on a path. I'm going to make the butterfly come out. It's going to come down here and it's going to check out the flowers. It's going to fly under the flap, come back to the top. It's going to loop around. And then it's going to land on the flap. And from there, it's going to take off again, fly straight up, and then over and out. So let's see, I've gone 1 direction, 2 directions, 3 directions, loop-de-looped, and then even gone a 4th direction. But I have a path. This is the path my butterfly is going to take. So now I have my stroke. I'm going to grab my black arrow, double-click that stroke until it's all highlighted like that. And I made it an object. If you accidentally do this, sorry guys, I forgot I turned on my object drawing mode. Let's try that again. I'm going to use my pencil this time. It'll make it easier. Make sure object drawing mode is off. Make your path. We'll go down. Come up. We're going to do a loop. We're going to land and come back up and fly off the screen. Now, as you can see, I've got a little problem right here. Maybe not. It might work out so that he takes off and then flies a little bit. We'll leave it that way. I'm going to double click it so that it has all those little dots and it's selected. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to cut it. Then I'm going to choose my butterfly, select it with your black arrow, right click, and I'm going to do create motion tween. Now I'm going to make sure my playhead is in frame 1. That red square and that red line should be on frame 1. And I'm going to click inside frame 1 and go to edit, paste in place. And you see that path? There it is. It turned that stroke I made into an actual path. Now you can see my butterfly is at the end where it should have started down here. It happens sometimes. All you have to do is right click on that frame 1 and you're going to go down to the very bottom and click reverse keyframes. It will move your butterfly back to its starting point, or your creature, whatever you've made, back to the starting point. Now then, you need to orient to path. If you look over here into your properties panel, you see there is a check mark for orient to path. So what does that mean? Right now, if I orient to path, my butterfly flies sideways. So that's not a very good idea, right? I'm going to uncheck it. I'm going to grab my transform tool. This little white dot that's in there. Let's zoom in here so you guys can see this. There's a little white dot in there. I want to move it right up there. This should be where my butterfly orients to. And I'm going to turn my butterfly and get it straight on the path. And then, black arrow, click my butterfly, go down and click in frame 1. You may have to click on another layer. If it won't let you just click in frame 1, you may have to click on another layer and then click in frame 1. And then I'm going to put a check mark next to orient to path. Back to show all. And now if I start dragging my playhead, my butterfly will fly and orient itself to the path the way it's supposed to. Notice the wings aren't flapping yet. Remember what I told you guys? It's independent of the main timeline, which means when you are just testing it inside Animate, you will not see any of the nested twins. In order to see those, you must play it in your browser. So let's go back to sharing my desktop here. And I'm going to go up to Control, Test Movie. You see it says in browser. Instead of going to Test Movie, you can just click on Test and give it a second. A couple of seconds. You may get that warning. You can ignore it. You don't have any code, so you don't need to worry about the warning. And you can see my wings are flapping, my butterfly's moving. And it does this little loop-de-loop. It comes down. It doesn't stop yet. We will make it stop, but it's not stopping yet. And it flies off the screen. Absolutely, Sarah. If you want to make your creature 3D in Photoshop, go for it. So now let's go back to Animate because we need to actually make it stop. So we're going to go down. We're going to go through my path over, oops, back up, right there. It needs to stop. I'm going to click in that frame and I'm going to double click. This is your ease options. I'm going to click on that ease and I need to do a stop and start. Go slow. Just in that frame though. Let's see. Right there, which is right here. I'm going to stretch that out a little bit. Let's pause. And I'm going to manipulate this timeline a little bit so that it will take a little bit for it to come back out. Let's play. Now I've got my ease on it. Now I need to remember what we learned in that video about stopping and starting, about the frames. Go back out to where this needs to be, right here. And I'm going to double click on this so I can go back to seeing just my frame view. Yeah, oops. I should be in this frame right here. And I need to add some frames. So I'm going to do insert keyframe all, insert keyframe all, insert keyframe all. I'm going to do this a few times. Let's see if that's long enough. We pause. Oh, I want to pause right there. I'm going to go down here and see if it'll let me split this motion. And then I need to do motion path. Oops. I don't want to reverse. I just want to make this longer. Position. Here. Stop. Stop. All right. That's better. Let's see how this plays through. No, we still got that weirdness going on. Lynda.com, Melissa, is the best place to learn it. I've still got my split frames there. Sorry, guys. I need to reverse that. It knocked off my orientation. There we go. Pause. Right there. Stop and start, bounce and scream, custom. Custom right there. Where are we supposed to be? Right. This is the one thing I don't like about Animate is when you start using these ease motions, guys, be careful because it will automatically put you some, when you double click, you're going to be somewhere else in your timeline and you have to go back. Stop. And so you have to remember that you have to move around that playhead. Otherwise, you're going to be moving something you don't want to move. I tend to do that a lot. There's my butterfly. Stop right there. Yes. I've got my ease in and out there. Let's turn that back on. I like ease in and ease out. Let's go medium. And double click that so it'll quit jumping around. There we go. Okay. And we land right there. I want to split motion. And I'm going to drag this one down a little bit. I'm going to shorten this, and then I want to take this whole split motion, and I'm going to drag it down to the end of my timeline like this. Now, right now, there's blank keyframes in here, right? What I'm going to do is grab this one keyframe, that one keyframe, and I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to click in this blank keyframe. Dark gray means blank, right? So right now, I skip my butterfly. This disappears and then it comes back. That's not what I want. So I'm going to click in that blank keyframe and go to Edit and Paste in Place. And let Animate think about that for a moment. There it goes. And so now I've stopped, and I'm going to have to go back and orient to path. We see my butterfly is off again. So we go play. Let's see what's going on there. We're good there. We do something really weird right there. We come around. Oh, wait a second. Let's back up here. My animation goes too far here. Back up. Where should you be? It flies. Oh, there it is. Right there. I need to take these. I'm going to highlight these little bit of frames right here. I need to go one after it. Oops, nope. Right there. And I'm going to clear frame. Oh, it's still flying. And Z. Don't forget, guys, when you accidentally move something like you just saw me doing the timeline that I wasn't supposed to move, there is an edit undo. So don't panic. Just go up to edit and go to undo, and it will put it back to the way it was. Especially when you're trying to highlight frames in a motion tween at the end, because it's really easy to scale that motion tween versus actually removing it. I'm going to remove those frames. Right there. Where are you here? I'm going to have to do this frame by frame, it looks like. We're there. There is where I want to stay. Why won't you go backwards? So it looks like I need to cut these and make them actual frame by frame. So what I'm going to do is highlight. Attempt to highlight. Come on. Most of you will not have the problems I am because my computer is freezing and pausing. This is taking forever. I'm going to highlight that little bit there, and I want to make this frame by frame. It may make me do the entire path. Well, let me clear those frames. Yes, but I have a feeling, yeah, it just pushed my motion path backwards. So I'm going to click on my layer, and it's going to highlight my entire motion path. I'm going to right click it, and we're going to try and turn this into frame by frame animation. Come on. Give me the frame by frame. Do, 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 do. Well, usually you get a nice frame by frame option, but maybe because I split that motion tween, it's not giving it to me on that end. There it is. Convert to frame by frame animation. And now I'm going to go back to the end here. And I'm going to highlight it right there and remove those frames. And then insert frames. Now I land, and then I'll start up again. Here, I'm going to uncheck orient to path and recheck it, and let's see if it fixes my butterfly. Nope. Let's zoom in there again. Uncheck orient to path, grab my transform tool. We're good there. So I'm going to go out just a few frames. This is where we start having the trouble. And I'm going to put my playhead right there, and I'm going to fix him. And twist him around the way he's supposed to be. Path. Like that. That should do it. Now let's take a look. So let's test him again. Shortcut for testing, guys, if you're on a Mac, hold down your Command key and just hit Enter. If you're on a Windows, hold your Control key down and hit Enter, and it will automatically test for you. And he does his loop-de-loop. I need to go back in, and I have a few glitches, as you saw. And he stops and he flies off again. And he keeps going. Right now it's looping. We don't want it to loop, right? And if you have to go in and edit your motion paths, you can. Do it the same way you did your shapes. If you deselect everything and you hover over one of those motion paths, your cursor is going to change and allow you to change that path. So if you have little places that are glitching, like right there, you can fix those so that they don't glitch. And you can just go through and fix all those little spots so that things are working the way they're supposed to. Now then, once you've got your path and you've looped and you've stopped and you've used your ease in, ease out, that sort of thing. Yes, there is 3D animation in Photoshop, Sarah, but you cannot use Photoshop to make your animation. You have to use Animate. You will have a class on making animation in Photoshop, though. It's fun class. I like using Photoshop to make animation. And I stop the way I'm supposed to now. So we've got all of our requirements. I go 3 directions. I do a loop. I stop and take off. So now I need to make sure I don't loop, right? It doesn't need to play more than once. It can only play one time. Simple fix. Go to File. Go to Publish Settings. And then in this Publish Setting box, you're going to uncheck Loop Timeline. Just uncheck it. And then hit OK. That way, let's close that. When you test it, it will only play one time. And it stops where the end of my motion path now stops. But you see it's still flying. Why is that? Because that nested tween is independent of my timeline. I would have to actually do a stop code in order to make everything stop. Once you get to that point, you've looped your timeline, you've got everything, you're going to save it. File, go to Save As, make a folder for it, guys. Call it Assessment 1. You will thank me when it's time to turn it in that you've made a folder that you can zip. You're going to save it into that folder. Maybe my computer will save it. I have something seriously wrong tonight. Heather, what kind of issues are you having? Is your animate acting like a 2-year-old like mine? I'm just going to make a folder on my desktop. Assessment 1. And I'm going to save it in there. Don't forget, you guys need to name it. Your first and last name. We'll get there, Sarah. Don't worry. We're going to talk all about masking so that you get optical illusions like things have flown inside something. Okay, Heather, give me just a second. We'll take a look at it. Okay, guys, once you saved it, then you're going to go to File. And you're going to go down to Publish Settings one more time. Make sure it's not checked. Make sure that your output is in the right folder, that you are inside the folder you just created. You're going to hit Save. And at the bottom, you're going to hit Publish. It's going to take it a second, a minute. Once that little box disappears, you just hit OK. Now, if you look in your Finder or your library, if you're on a Windows, and you go into the folder you made, you're going to see several different files. You're going to see an images file. You're going to see your .js. This is the JavaScript that Animate created for you so that your animation will work in the browser. So you're going to see that HTML file as well. And then you're going to see your FLA file. This week, all you have to do is export it and publish it, right? It doesn't give you actual requirements on which. Now, all you have to do is save it and publish it, and you're just going to zip that file, and you're going to turn in that zip file. Make sure you turn in all of those files, not just the HTML. If you turn in just the HTML, I'm not going to be able to see a thing. You have to turn in all the files that are in that folder. So just zip it and name it what it's supposed to be, and then you're good to go. So now Heather is having issues. So Heather, you want to share your screen with me? If I stop sharing, you want to share with me so I can take a look at it? Because if you're having issues, there's a bet that some of your classmates will be having them too. Share your screen with me. Let's take a look. And guys, I promise the majority of you will not have the issues I had tonight. It was more my computer than it was Animate. You have to draw your path first. Did you draw your path first? Now you can rearrange it a little bit, but it's not going to allow you to add extra to it, so to speak. You can do things like that, but you can use a pen tool to actually make your path. If you go down and right click on your butterfly layer, where's your motion? You are in scene 1. Your motion tween should be, on which, oh, you've got all your parts. Heather, you might want to go back and watch the thing first. You should have made your butterfly into a symbol first and gone into that movie clip and made the wings flap. You're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a hard time getting everything to follow like this, because see, your antennas are flying on a different path. Pull your playhead through there again and watch your antennas. They're flying on a different path. And it's because you've got so many different motion twins. If you make that symbol first and go into that movie clip, inside that butterfly symbol, where all your different pieces are, make your wings flap there. And then go back to the main timeline and pull the butterfly out of your layers panel, out of your library. The wings will already be flapping. That motion's already done. So then all you have to do is draw the actual motion path. And then it will fly on that motion path, and you can use the pen tool, draw out your path everywhere you want that butterfly to go. And then double click on that path you drew and cut it. Go to edit, go to cut, and then create a motion tween on your butterfly layer. And go to edit, paste in place, and it will automatically paste that path in there. Okay, guys, any questions? And again, guys, don't worry about your drawing. You're not being graded on the drawing. You're being graded on creating your timeline, applying your motion tweens, that sort of thing. Have fun with it. Do something creative, funny, interesting, whatever. Have fun with it. I will be in the Student Success Center on Thursdays and Friday evenings. Thursdays from 8 to 11 p.m. Mountain Time, and Fridays from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. Mountain Time. And yes, you can, Heather. If you want to wait a second, you can show me one. Okay, Melissa. All right, guys. Other than that, I will see you either in the Student Success Center if you need me. Email me if you're having problems. If you can't come into the Student Success Center, we'll find a way to meet in Zoom. I will absolutely be there with you guys every step of the way. So if you're having issues, reach out to me so I can help you. This should be fun, guys. Have fun with it. So if you're stressing, let me know. Okay, guys. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Monday at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. Good night. Melissa, are we talking assignment or assessment?
Anime. Animate.
Hold on a second. Let me turn up my volume. There you go. What was that?
Animate.
Animate. So we're talking the assessment.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Make your artboard first. And
Okay.
then you're going to open Animate, and under New, you're going to choose HTML5 Canvas, and you're going to make your artboard.
Okay, I'm writing this down.
And let me go back to my Animate here. And then on the right-hand side screen, you should see a Properties tab. If you don't see that Properties tab, just go to the very top of your screen and click on Window next to Help and click on Properties, and it'll open up this panel for you. And right here in this panel, you're going to see a size, W and H. You're going to change your width and height to 500 by 350. So you can just double click on the number, and it'll let you type in the box instead of trying to use the slider. And just do 500 by 350. And you're going to change that. And that's your artboard. The next thing I would do is create your creature. Before you even try to come up with a environment, a background, create your creature. And just remember, it's got to have some kind of wings. And you're more than welcome to make a butterfly. You can make a bird. Doesn't matter what you make. It just needs to have wings so they flap. You can make a little fairy if you wanted to.
Okay.
Once you get it made, you're going to select it by using your selection arrow, your black arrow up here. Draw a square over all of its pieces. So you select it all. And you're going to go to modify. And you're going to choose convert to symbol. And another little panel is going to pop up right in the middle of your screen. You're going to give your creature a name. And you're going to make sure the little motion tween, let me select, I think you can see this here. You're going to make sure this little panel that pops up, just like that. You're going to give it a name, right there where it says name. And under type, right below name, you're going to make sure it says movie clip.
Okay. So that's where you got that at.
Yeah. And then you're going to click OK. And then you're going to go over to the right-hand side again. Next to that Properties tab, you should see a Library tab. If you don't see it, again, just go to Windows and then click on Library, and it'll open it up for you. You're going to click on that Libraries tab, and you're going to see your creature, whatever you made, into a movie clip. You're going to see it in your Libraries panel down here at the bottom. You'll probably see a picture of it right here at the top. And then you're going to see it listed down here at the bottom. You're going to go to the little icon right beside the name of your movie clip, that little icon right there. And you're going to double click it. It's going to open up another artboard. The entire screen is going to be white. It's not even going to look like it. It's not really an artboard. But it's going to have a white background at the very top of your screen. You're going to see that it says scene 1 and then whatever the name of your movie clip is. That's when you know you're in the right place.
Okay.
And then this is where you're going to make the wings flap. You're going to click on your first wing. Most likely everything's going to be on one layer. So you're going to have to select everything again. Right click on it, and you're going to, there will be an option to distribute to layers. Right down there about halfway down. It'll say distribute to layers. So you're going to move everything to its own separate layer. And then you're going to go through each one. And you can do it just the way I did it. You can go over to your timeline, where all your layers are. And these little first set of dots are your eye icon. Basically, it turns everything on and off. And you can just click on that first dot, see what it turns off, whatever it turns off, name that, that's the layer name. And keep going until you find your wings. Once you have your wings, you need to make them flap. So we know a motion tween has to have how many frames? 24?
24.
So you're going to have to go out to at least frame 24. And you're going to have to insert frame on all of your layers. You can either do them all at once by clicking in an empty layer, holding your mouse button down and dragging all the way down. That will select all of the frames. Or you can simply click in one frame, right click, insert frame, and then go to the next layer, right click, insert frame, and keep going like that. Totally up to you. Sometimes it's hard when you're first learning to get frames selected because it's not a click and release and then click again. That won't work. You have to click and hold your mouse button down without releasing and then drag in order to highlight. Once you've gotten 24 frames, you're going to go up to whatever wing you have selected, You're going to right click on it and you're going to do create motion twin. Mine says remove motion twin because there's already a motion, but right where mine says remove is where yours will say create motion twin. So you're going to create it. It's going to turn those frames blue. You're going to come over and grab your free transform tool. And when you grab yours, your little white dot is going to be in the center of that square. You're going to grab the little white dot and drag it over to your butterfly's body or your creature's body where it connects to the body. You're going to drag it right there. And then on your timeline, you're going to go halfway. So if you have 24 frames, you're going to go to frame 12. And you're going to click in frame 12 of that layer, of that wings layer. And you're going to grab your transform tool and you're going to scale it backwards so it looks like that wing is straight up in the air. So it looks like it's flapped up. And then you're going to go out to the very last frame, which would be frame 24 if you only have 24 frames, and you're going to scale it back out so that it's flat. So it's the same size it originally was. So it looks like it flaps up and then back out. So it goes up and then out. And then you're going to turn around and do the exact same thing to the other wing. You're going to click on it, right click, create motion twin, click on frame 12, scale it up to the same position the other wing is in. And then go out and click in frame 24 and scale it back out so it's the original size. And then suddenly it looks like your wings are flapping.
Okay.
Once you've done all of that, your wings are flapping, you're simply going to go back to scene 1. You can just, up in the right hand corner, you can just click on the word scene 1 and it'll take you right back to scene 1. Where all of your stuff is. So now you've got your creature done. And right now it's probably still on your artboard. Go ahead and click on it and select it. All you have to do is click on it now because it's a symbol. So it'll select the entire thing all at one time and delete it off your artboard. And then make your background, the environment that you're going to have your creature in. I had a student do a couple months ago, they did an alien. And he had a little spaceship, and that's how they made their creature fly. He didn't have wings, he had a spaceship. And the spaceship had wings on it that kind of flapped. But it was kind of a little different than a butterfly, of course, because it didn't flap quite that much. It just moved a little bit. But he had a little spaceship. You can do anything cute like that, guys. Anything. Be creative with it. Anyway, once you've done that, you're going to create your environment. In that case, it was a black background and he had little spots on it for stars and he had a planet in the middle of it. It was nothing more than a circle and he drew little squigglies on it to represent a planet. And the spaceship flew around the planet kind of and did a loop-de-loop and then went back off the artboard. It was nothing major. So just something simple.
And you suggest Linda, it's not Lydia, Lynda.com for the for more tutorials on how to start in Animate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. And even if you have trouble, don't hesitate to come see me in the SSC on Thursday or Friday. I'll be there.
I'll be there too.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll see you then. Okay, guys, anyone else with any questions?